But it's kind of backward a little bit. So the way we teach students how to use English, we teach the grammar first instead of like, this is how you talk, this is how you use English in everyday life, and then kind of, okay, this is what's happening in what you're saying, right? Yeah, it's kind of backward, right?
Yeah, and I think one anecdote that I have from my time at Thai school is, and I think this actually reflects quite a lot. I think everyone will remember if they study at Thai school that in your kind of first English lessons, you always kind of have to begin every class with the teacher saying, hello, how are you today, right? And it's almost like regardless of how ill you are that day, regardless of how sick you are, you have to reply, I am fine, thank you, and you, right? So
Exactly.
I mean, that's like not the right way to teach English where you're trying to, it's almost like trying to present that there is only one correct answer to that question.
Exactly, right. Oh, God. So you did go to Thai school before you went to Eton and Oxford. So what did you remember about your English classes
Yeah.
back in the day?
So I was at a Thai school from primary 1 to primary 3. So I actually only started learning English at primary 3. I think back then, primary 1, primary 2, we didn't learn. So I remember learning the Let's Go book. I don't know if Thai students still use it now.
Okay.
But the most complicated sentence that we learned from that book was, my favorite color is XXX. and then you can imagine, because in the summer between primary 3 and primary 4 was when I had the chance to go to a study at a school in UK just for the summer program, just for the summer holiday. So I was thrown in the deep end. I had to communicate and learn everything in English without anyone in Thai helping me. And the biggest weapon I have was, my favorite color is XXX.
That's your only weapon. But, well, just to be a little clearer about primary 1, primary 2, what was the equivalent in like Thai education, Thai system? มัธยมหรือเปล่าฮะ
ป .1 ครับ
ป
ป
.1 เลย
ใช่
ป .2 เลย
ใช่
โอเค
ใช่ครับ
เพราะฉะนั้นการศึกษาภาษาอังกฤษไทยของไอติมก็คือเด็กมากๆแล้วก็โดนโยนไปที่
ใช่โดนโยนไปที่อังกฤษตอนช่วงหนึ่งซัมเมอร์ใช่ครับแต่ว่าหลังจากนั้นพอกลับมาจากซัมเมอร์ผมก็เลยเปลี่ยนไปเรียนที่โรงเรียนนานาชาติ
ครับ
and then I think that was when my English started to get better and before then and then after my international school experience then I applied to a school in the UK.
Yeah. So you were talking about how we should teach English in the classroom before, like turning it into like the oral activity, like actually do the talking to one another, right? But a lot of problems with Thai teachers that they cannot do this for the student because they kind of teach everything by the book. And a lot of them, not all of them, a lot of them are not used to actually, speaking in English in the classroom. So that could be a problem, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a challenge. And I think when we talk about education, we can't separate three things, which is curriculum, instruction, and assessment. So if you change one without changing the other two, then nothing's going to happen.
Yes.
So I think that's the challenge, right? I mean, we talked before, right? If you change the curriculum, but you're still assessing students based on their knowledge of grammar, then nothing's going to change. So I think in a way, we need to find a way to help teachers be able to conduct classes and conduct lessons in a different manner. So I think, let's say if we change the curriculum to be less about knowing the language, more about using the language, we change the assessment to be more about testing whether you can communicate, then we need to train teachers as well as to how to conduct those classes, because then those classes can no longer be kind of one-way delivery where the teacher just say list out a list of vocab to remember, but it has to be conducted in a way that fosters group discussion, group exchange, and then students feel safe doing that as well.
ผมก็จำได้สมัยผมเนี่ยครูคนแรกที่รู้สึกว่าเขาพูดภาษาอังกฤษกับเราจริงๆคือแบบเปิดคลาสมาปั๊บซัดภาษาอังกฤษยาวเลยม.4 ครับกว่าจะเจอครูแบบนี้ก่อนหน้านั้นคือมันเหมือนกับเขาก็มีความรู้สึกว่าถ้าสมมติเกิดเราคุยภาษาอังกฤษกับนักเรียนเลยมันจะยากไป Would that be too challenging or too difficult for students to process and to learn? So maybe we can teach it in Thai first and teach them grammar and then later in like higher education then let's speak English to them. Maybe that's a kind of mindset that prevents this from happening.
Yeah, I think that's probably the case too. And I think you're right. If you start to use the language at Mathayom C or grade 10, right? It's too late in a way because the younger you are, the easier you can pick up the language. So I think we need to find a way to help Thai teachers do that. I mean, one potential solution that some people have suggested is to use native teachers, right? Because then that forces students to have to communicate in English. But again, I know there are budgetary constraints with that. But I mean, let's put aside the fact that whether we actually spend our budget effectively or not, yes.
Right.
But even without native teachers coming to help, I think you're right. We need to get over that mindset that, oh, because the teacher is Thai, the student is Thai, therefore we need to just communicate in Thai first. Yeah.
แต่แล้วถ้าสมมติเกิดเราจะใช้ครู native มากขึ้นครูไทยจะไปอยู่ที่ไหนล่ะครับครูไทยที่อยากสอนภาษาอังกฤษจริง
Oh, I think there's always a role for Thai teachers to play. I think to give an example of what we are doing at our company, when we teach English, so we just set up something called English Academy, where we teach English not based on the curriculum, but to try and get students to be able to speak and communicate more effectively. So we separate our class into two areas. The first section will be by a native speaker. Which has its benefits because it forces students to have to communicate in English and then it puts them in a slightly uncomfortable environment and then get them to learn. But then we follow that up with the second part, which is with a local Thai teacher. And then we see that students sometimes kind of asking Thai teachers for help, like what does that mean? What does this mean? And actually when we do like class satisfaction rating from the students, they actually give almost equal satisfaction for both classes. So they do see the value. It doesn't substitute each other. It actually complements each other, I would say. Yeah.
So you have the comfort zone for them and you not so comfort zone for the other circumstances as well. And they kind of work together.
Yeah.
So tell us more about what you're doing at your company about like English education and English learning.
So I mean, so our startup is called StartDee. Our main product is actually an application called StartDee, which is an attempt to try to democratize access to high quality education. So it's an online learning application. The model is kind of similar to Netflix. So it's a subscription-based model. And if you pay, let's say, a membership fee of 200 baht, you get access to all the learning content in our application. So we have learning content from grade 4 to grade 12 in all key subjects in school. So English, math, like science, Thai, social studies, as well as additional skills like financial literacy, like mental health, like environment. So that's kind of our main product. But recently we launched our second product, which is this English Academy, where it's no longer just self-learning in the app, but it's actually like a blended, a mixture between live learning and self-learning. So we have a course, it's a 12-week course conducted by native teachers that we share with our Indonesian and Vietnamese counterparts and then our local Thai teachers. So it's a combination of them like self-learning through the videos in the app plus attending these kind of live online classes. Yeah.
So what are you teaching? What are you guys doing?
So our primary goal is to try and get students to be better at communicating. So the main app will focus on the curriculum in the Thai school, but the English Academy will focus on the skills. So we don't care about the
grammar
at all. Yes.
Oh, okay.
And we base it on the Cambridge curriculum.
Okay.
So we have the license to the textbooks and all that. But I think the main aim is to try and get students to be more comfortable in speaking. So the teachers will always keep an eye out. Throughout these 12 weeks, like are you more daring to communicate?
Right.
Are you more comfortable at communicating? Yeah.
So what has been the responses?
We just launched our first cohort. So as we're speaking right now, the first cohort is coming towards an end. So we're just kind of talking to students and parents right now to see like how much we have helped. But the early signs are pretty positive. But I think we're still trying to fine tune the format to make sure that it's optimized.
Yeah, that would be so cool. One of the problems that we see here is that we learn a lot. We study a lot of English in the classrooms. But then when we come out of the classroom, we have nowhere to use and we have no people to go and talk to in English. So what can we do?
That's an interesting question. Actually, I think that there are more chances for you to use the language now, actually, because with social media, right? You will encounter friends from across the world much more easily than before. So I think, in a way, like in this increasingly online world, there are actually more opportunities to use the language. But I think, in a way, we should not be afraid to practice using the language between even amongst Thai friends, right? And it doesn't have to be like, oh, you have to communicate in English all the time.
Right.
I remember when I went to an international school, and I didn't really agree with this, but there was a school rule which said that you are not allowed to communicate in Thai to each other.
Like at all.
At all. So I would get punished.
You'll be punished?
Yeah. I'll be punished if I get caught speaking Thai to a Thai friend.
How would you be punished if you were caught speaking Thai?
Like detention. I can't remember the scale.
Man.
But it was that I would not recommend. But
for a lot of people, that would be like better if we are too flexible in like letting them like speaking in whatever language they want. They might end up speaking Thai all day.
Yeah, but I mean, I just felt that the making it mandatory and compulsory and forcing it may not be the best way.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, it's we should not make it the case that like just because you're talking amongst Thai friends, you should only speak in Thai, right? It's okay to practice a language with your friends.
So you think it's okay to switching back and forth between two languages?
I think it's okay. It
มัน
depends
ก็
on
ที่เราทำอยู่ตอนนี้ก็คือสองภาษาไปเลย
ใช่ใช่ใช่
แต่หลายคนอาจจะบอกว่าแล้วทำไมมันจะมีคำว่าไทยคำอังกฤษคำซึ่งแบบ not okay very frowned upon หน้าหมั่นไส้ whatever ซึ่งหลายๆคนก็จะบอกว่าไม่ควรจะไทยคำอังกฤษคำหรือว่าทูตสองภาษาไอติมคิดยังไงกับเรื่องนี้ครับ
Oh, I think it depends on the context. So if you notice when I give interviews, especially like in politics or in public, I will always try to give it completely in Thai. Which was a huge challenge initially when I came.
Because you have to be so aware and of everything that you have to like speak, right?
Yes, and sometimes I mean initially because I studied in the UK for 9 years, and then I worked in an international company for 2 more years. So my brain thinks in English. So when I had to kind of communicate publicly, I still sometimes think in English. So it was a challenge. But I think for that context, the reason I speak wholly in Thai is because we know that there might be people listening who might not understand English, and therefore it's very important for us to get our message across to everyone and keep it entirely in Thai. But I think in other settings, having a mixture of Thai and English, I don't think it's damaging. I mean, it completely depends on the context and who you're communicating.
Who you're talking to, exactly. ที่บ้านทำอะไรได้บ้างครับคุณพ่อคุณแม่หรือคนที่คอยซัพพอร์ตน้องๆลูกๆหลานๆ
Oh, I always try to be careful at giving parenting advice, given that I've never been one. But but I think you want to create a safe space at home. I think that's very important. I mean, of course, everywhere in society should be a safe space, but you can't expect that out of everyone. But at least you can do it for yourselves at home. So how do you create an environment where students feel excited to learn English? So I think if you start forcing your students to learn English and they feel that learning English is a burden, learning English is not fun, it's boring, it's something that they're forced to do, like eating vegetables, then I don't think they're going to like it.
Right.
So in a way, try to monitor or have a look at what your child or your children want to do, like to do, and then try to find ways to inject English in there somewhere. And then secondly, I think, try and create an environment where it's not wrong. Or it's not bad if your children say something and it's wrong, right? So don't make them feel bad. Don't be like, hey, that's not how you say it. It should be like this, right? I think should refrain from that. And then finally, I think actually this is important, not just for parents, is don't put too much don't put any emphasis on accents.
Oh yeah, that's a big thing. Always a big thing, and that would be the indication of your English is good or not.
Yes.
If you can speak in a certain accent, right?
Yeah, I think we have to separate between pronunciation and accent, right? Pronunciation is are you saying the words in a way that the other person would understand what you're saying? I mean, that's important because if you're pronouncing it in a wrong way, then the other person might not understand it. But accent, I mean, there is no single accent, by the way. I mean, it's actually a misconception to say that there is one correct British or American accent because even in the UK, different regions have different accents. So there is no one single correct accent. So in that sense, I think we should try and not put any emphasis on like what accent this person is delivering. And I've also been, people have commented saying that I speak with very different accents depending on who my audience is.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that's true. I've never really self-assessed. But for example, there was 1 year where I was working in Malaysia after I graduated. And people were saying that, so after 1 year graduating, I call back to my English friends. They say, hey, dude, why do you have like some
well,
sort
you talk different.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know.
That actually happened to me. Like when I talk to my Japanese friend, let's say, I think I talk differently because I don't think that I need to be เราจะอาจจะพูดภาษาอังกฤษแบบไทยขึ้นแล้วเรารู้สึกว่าเพื่อนญี่ปุ่นของเราจะเข้าใจภาษาอังกฤษของเราที่พูดแบบไทยๆมากกว่าที่เราจะพูดแบบ let's say American or whatever อยู่ที่ audience จริงๆเนาะ and that's okay too right you don't have to be like oh this is my accent and this is so like precious I have to like talk in this way all the time
I mean the purpose of talking is getting your message across so whatever accent gets your message across that's okay
yeah maybe we need to expose them to like more accents that is out there or you know I myself found a lot of Thai people can be very fluent in speaking English and they don't even have to have like British or American accent but I can appreciate how they talk and I think they're good they're plenty good at speaking English and I enjoy talking with them right
and yeah I mean there's no as I mentioned there's no correct accent I remember when I went to study in UK initially the teacher that oversaw our boarding house was Irish and it was so difficult to understand her at first but then we kind of pick it up so I mean even in the UK there are so many different accents that you have to familiarize yourself with
อาจจะต้องทำให้เขามีความรู้สึกว่าแบบaccent ไม่ได้เท่ากับ your greatness of Okay another question that I want to ask you is that do you see Thai society becoming a bilingual society in the future and would that be like better
I think we need I don't know if it's bilingual or trilingual but we need our people to be able to communicate in the languages that the world is communicating in because right now we are seeing that the world is moving towards a much more globalized environment where you are expected to work with to communicate with to have interactions with people from across from other countries right so if our people are not able to communicate in languages that other people across the world can understand then I think that could be an obstacle right and I think even from like a business point of view right to be able to compete you need to be able to have people who are able to communicate in international languages as well so we don't know how many languages are going to be considered global languages we know English is one now we don't know if Chinese will ever get to the same level I mean people talk about like coding as another language as well so I think it's probably not we don't need to set like how many languages we need to be able to speak but I think the education system needs to be fluid it needs to be flexible it needs to always look forward at what new potential trends are coming and making sure that we equip our people with those skills because as I mentioned in the beginning if you change the education system you're not going to see the impact now you're going to see it in 10 and 20 years time so we need to be very careful and very active in trying to predict the trends that are coming in
เป็นเรื่องที่ยากนะครับไม่ว่าจะเป็นเรื่องของแบบบริษัทเองก็ตามทีตอนนี้เหมือนกับเฮ้ยเราไม่สามารถจะตั้งเป้า3ปี5ปี well let alone like 10 years 3 ปีนี่คือเป็นไปไม่ได้แล้วไม่มีใครมองเห็นอีก3 ปีข้างหน้าแบบปีนึงก็ยากแล้ว education is the same way right we need to like well it's not possible to like predict a trend but we kind of can be flexible to like embrace whatever coming our way
I mean it's of course not possible to predict 10 years ahead and we don't need to get it right every time but we need to build a structure such that it is flexible such that if we do see a trend it doesn't take like years for us to like get through reforms to amend the curriculum right it has to be flexible enough and I think that's important I think to be honest we can already see like certain skills that I think are going to be important regardless of how the world is going to go regardless of what professions these people are going to end up doing right so things like communication things like critical thinking things like having empathy being able to work in teams are going to be all the things that hopefully robots cannot do better than us right so in that sense it's always going to be things that are important in the market in the job market going forward